Hey there, you awesome people! I hope your day has been nothing short of fantastic. Welcome back to a brand new episode of What If Deku's memories was altered. Instead of Katsuki Bakugou getting kidnapped, Izuku Midoriya risks his life and ends up being taken by the League of Villains. A rescue is ensured, but instead they come face to face with Deku next to All for One, calling him Sensei. They discover that Deku's memories had been altered from the point when Bakugou tells him to jump off the school roof to be reborn with a quirk. Don't forget to shower some appreciation onto the incredible author responsible for this fanfiction. The link is conveniently waiting for you in the description box down below. If you're totally vibing with this what-if scenario, drop me a comment and let your thoughts be known. And while you're at it, don't miss out on other mind-blowing what-ifs on this channel. Alright, without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. Izuku Midoriya had moved into the dorms of UA. Bakugou didn't know who made the executive decision, but had a strong suspicion that All Might had some stance on it. He didn't mind either way, since he and his mother had constantly gone over to the Midoriya household when they had time. She was alone in the house, no husband, no son, nothing but herself and her lonely, dreary thoughts. On top of that, it seemed like the executives took into account that she was the only true link to Izuku Midoriya's memories. While the altered memories had recognized Bakugou, it was possible that he could have recognized his own mother as something uncaring. It was a stretch, of course, but if Izuku could build up so much rage and hatred towards Bakugou, who's to say that the altered memories didn't do the same to his own mother? No one told her that reasoning, of course, but she was already more than happy to move in with the children. The class was kind to her, always asking if she needed something and treated her with the utmost respect. Izuku had nervously declined any help and offered her own assistance instead. She had cooked meals for the class and spent time mostly in the kitchen washing dishes. She wouldn't let anyone else do them. Most of the class grew concerned that they were taking advantage of the woman, but Bakugou understood she needed to keep herself busy. She cried often as in more than her own son's routine of crying. It became clear to see that the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. Izuku cried both in happiness and in sadness. No one blamed her for crying. After all, her son was forcibly turned into the one thing he sought to defeat. The first time she had cried, Izuku was sitting on the sofa late at night. Sensei had snuck out of his room in order to grab some sugar ingredients for his room when he got caught by the mother. She had lectured him about eating after hours and the possibility of stomach aches, but was intrigued by his quirk's properties when it came to sugar intake. Sensei had apologized as Izuku began laughing. Tears slowly fell down her cheek as she smiled through it. Sensei had told everyone the next morning that Izuku had cried because he reminded her of a time Izuku had snuck into the kitchen to eat leftovers. She stressed that it was a happy memory, and she was crying from the laughter. Sensei had given her a warm embrace anyways, offering her cake. Izuku took his offer. There were many other times she had cried, almost always related to Izuku in one way or another. 3 times she had cried not related to her son. The first, Ida had been talking to some classmates, and Izuku had walked over with a plate of snacks for the students. Ida's hand moved up too quickly and smacked the woman right in the face, causing her to drop the plate. Needless to say, everyone was mad at the class president, including himself. Izuku had reassured him that she was fine. Her eyes just wells up easily. Ida was ready to jump off the balcony despite the mother trying to let him know that it was only an accident. The second time she had burst into tears without the topic of her son was when Yaoyorozu made her a music box to decorate her guest room. Izuku was amazed at the girl's quirk and the fact she had learned to make such an intricate object to gift her. This also caused an uproar in the class, finding it unfair that Yaoyorozu could create such a great present. After that, Izuku's guest room was decorated with various trinkets and home decor the other students either bought or made for her. She cherished each and every one of the gifts she received from the students, making her cry again. The third was a time only Bakugou saw and didn't say a word of it. It was past curfew and everyone had gone to bed. Only Bakugou and Todoroki were up during those hours, always training in secrecy either in their rooms or on the training field. The two never spoke to one another nor wanted to have any kind of joint training, so they avoided each other. Bakugou walked back from the training field, muttering to himself on how often the hot and cold bastard was always hogging it for himself. Both of their quirks required space to train, so the training arena outside of the dorms was the perfect place to hone the two students' quirks. Sure, they could have both trained on the same field, but neither of them wanted to interact with one another. The two had agreed to work together to save Deku, but that didn't mean they had to be friendly towards one another. Niceties were on either of their plates. As he walked back into the dorm building, Bakugou had heard small whimpering in the hall. He peeked his head around the corner to see All Might, the lanky form of him holding Izuku Midoriya's hands and whispering things to her. Bakugou was concerned at first, fearing she had cried over Deku again, but once he noticed her smile, he stopped himself from interfering. He kept this to himself, not wanting to share how he saw the two adults hold hands tightly like their lives depended on one another. The mother settled in and the class grew quite fond of her after the first couple of weeks. She knew every single one of Class 1A students' names and at least 1 or 2 fun facts about them. "Everyone, please work hard today. Always do your best." Inko had nervously stuttered out as the students headed out the dorms, towards the main school building. She was always given hugs and promises in return, but Bakugou always felt bad whenever they had to leave her alone at the dormitory. She didn't have anyone to occupy her thoughts with, so that was probably the time when she thought about her son. Usually Bakugou went straight back to the dorms after all classes were over, but today he had to meet someone. It took him a while to figure out where the damn nerd was after classes, but today he would finally be able to ask the questions he needs. "What do you want, hero course?" The tired eyes gave a harsh edge that Bakugou countered with a glare of his own. "Shut the fuck up and listen to me. This ain't about me, okay? I wanted to talk about your damn quirk." He frowned deeply. The other boy, Hitoshi Shinso, raised an eyebrow curiously. "Why would you want to know about my quirk? Seems like you have better things to do than talk to us general department kids." The boy sighed, reaching up to rub the back of his neck. "Back in the sports festival, Deku I mean," Bakugou grimaced. "Izuku Midoriya, the guy you were fighting in the tournament. How'd he overcome your quirk?" His voice grew low, Shinso's eyes widened. "Is this about his disappearance?" The tone in Shinso's voice had also gotten low. The mood had gone serious. "Shut up and answer my questions already. Don't try to dash." Bakugou's words fell flat. His entire mind went hazy, like it was shrouded in fog. It began to lift, and he exhaled loudly, gritting his teeth in annoyance. "Don't you dare fucking do that again." He reached over to grab the boy's collar, but Shinso slapped his hand away. "That's how it feels to be brainwashed by my quirk. Your mind is lost in this fog. You have your mind intact, but your body will start obeying my command." He began explaining, sighing softly. "I don't know what this is about, but I have a feeling it's related to Midoriya's disappearance." "Has he been brainwashed?" Bakugou hesitated, knowing that only Class 1A and the teachers knew all the details about Midoriya's disappearance and his transformation into a villain. He swallowed hard before nodding. "You better keep your trap shut about this, okay? We're just trying to figure some shit out." Bakugou's hands balled up into fists next to him. "You must be desperate," Shinso replied, leaning against the wall in the hallway. "You know that all quirks are different and my brainwashing is probably a different kind than whatever Midoriya is under." Bakugou clenched his teeth, his fist shaking. "I fucking know that. But he broke out of your hold, so maybe he can dash." Bakugou's sentence dropped. His mind became hazy once more as he stared at the purple-haired boy with clouded eyes. "Slap yourself," Shinso commanded. Bakugou's hand involuntarily went up. He struggled to keep his hand down, but ultimately it slapped him right across the face. His mind cleared once again, the rage building inside of Bakugou as he took a hold of the other boy's shoulders and gripped hard. "What the fuck did I say?" His hands began to smoke, Shinso staring at him dead in the eyes. "That's what Midoriya had gone through. I don't know anything about how he could have gotten out of it. It's never happened before." Shinso's sullen eyes looked from Bakugou to his hands that had its tight grip on his shoulders. Bakugou's teeth clenched tighter, threatening to break his own jaw. "Then that means it's possible, right? He could get out of that brainwashing." Bakugou let go, hands falling back to his side. "I don't know. My quirk isn't the same as whatever that kid's under, but what he did has never happened to me before. He's a special case." Shinso turned around and began walking away. "If anyone could get out of a bind, it's probably him. I don't want to give you false hope, but I believe he can break out of it." Shinso left the school grounds, leaving Bakugou in the hallway. Bakugou's heart began beating, mouth quivering. There was hope somewhere then. Time and time again, Deku had done something that surprised everyone, exceeding expectations. "What the hell was that?" Bakugou's head turned to face Todoroki, his own face falling into a grimace. "What the fuck do you want?" He glared at Icy Hot, stuffing his hands into his pockets. "Telling people outside of our classroom about Midoriya? Don't you think that the police and teacher are already asking brainwashed quirk users that kind of stuff? That guy doesn't know much, but you're already blabbering out secrets." Todoroki's glare was cold. Bakugou's became fiery hot. You think I can stand by and wait around for some police guy to figure something out? At least I'm trying to do something about it. He spat back, keeping his balled fists in his pockets to prevent himself from lashing out at his classmate. Don't tell me you haven't been doing some kind of research. Everyone in class is. Fucking Yayorozu brought an entire library back from her fucking mansion to research this shit. You're recklessly jeopardizing Midoriya's position. What if that general education student went off to tell everyone that one of Class 1A's students have been brainwashed by villains? He's made it known that he resents us, so this is perfect leverage for him. The boy's voice grew louder, more fierce. Bakugou winced slightly, lowering his head. No, you dope! I know for a fact that shitty purple-haired loser isn't going to tell anyone. Bakugou glared back at Todoroki before turning around, heading out the building. And how do you know that? Todoroki called out, following him. Because when I talked to him, he got those fucking eyes when I mentioned Deku. Like shit, I don't fucking know how to describe it. Bakugou turned back to him. It's the same eyes you fucking got. The kind that means Deku helped you out in some fucking way. Todoroki stopped, eyes wide. Bakugou sneered, that must have shut him up. By the way, I'm taking the training field tonight. Don't show up, bastard. Bakugou screamed out before walking out of the school. Just like he expected, Todoroki did not show up to the training field that night. Perfect. Bakugou walked out into the field and took deep breaths, aiming his hands out. There was plenty of things he needed to work on. Maneuvering with his explosions to be as accurate and quick as he can. Also, he needed to work on condensing the trajectory of his blows in order to create a single, powerful shot. It was a special move he had been working hard on, and now he was able to work upon it in the training field. Focus. Put all the power on the tip of my fingers, don't activate the palm. Focus. Before he could release the explosive energy stored up, Bakugou heard footsteps approach. He swung his hands towards the invader with threatening reflexes, only to come face to face with Inko. It's just me! The mother squealed out, tears welling up in her eyes. Bakugou quickly put his hands down. Shit, I'm sorry, wait, shit, sorry, you shouldn't have snuck up on me. He tried to apologize for nearly blowing the woman's head off, and then for the cursing, but ended up yelling at her instead. I'm sorry, Katsuki. I should have said something, but then again, you really shouldn't be out here past curfew. Her face turned stern, her tears drying. Bakugou was sure the woman would have burst into tears, but he misjudged the motherly instincts that overrides fear. I'm just training, you don't have to worry about me. I need to get stronger. Bakugou turned to look at his hands. Deku had pierced knives through his palms, and though it was healed up, the phantom pain acted up whenever he thought about it. Inko only stared at his hands and placed her own on top of one of them. Katsuki, I know you're working hard for Izuku, but if you push yourself you're not going to be able to do anything. Please get some rest. Her eyes looked tired. It didn't look like Inko got much sleep at night either. Bakugou looked back to the training arena. He just got a chance to use the training field for the night, so should have been able to spend a limited time working on his special move. But Inko's face looked too concerned, too motherly to refuse her request. He gritted his teeth looking away from her. I know you want to get stronger. You and Izuku are so alike, you know? Shit. Bakugou turned to face her, seeing her eyes well up once more. He quickly took a hold of her hands. And I will. I'm going to become stronger and save him. You got that? I made you a promise. Inko gave the boy a small smile, wiping her tears with a sleeve. I know you will, but you need to not push yourself, okay? Get some rest, please. Bakugou took another look at the mother's face and then nodded. Okay, I will. You've been up every night for the last days. Will you stop writing for 1 second and sleep? A sofa cushion was thrown at Izuku's face. ACK, I'm almost done, don't worry. The young boy picked up the cushion and tossed it back at Tamura, who was sprawled across the other sofa perpendicular to the table Izuku was writing at. Tamura allowed the cushion to hit his legs, humming thoughtfully. He swung his feet over the armrest and reached over, snatching the notebook from Izuku's desk with 4 fingers. Hey! Izuku reached to grab back his notebook, only to be threatened by the last finger coming down. I can't fucking go to sleep with you tapping your pencil constantly. I'm tired, so go to sleep. Tamura flung the notebook back at Izuku, who scrambled to catch it. He sighed in relief when he had his notes in his hands, placing it down on the table. Looking over at Tamura, Izuku stood up from his seat, walking over to the other sofa. Izuku sighed and fell onto it, letting his face fall into the stuffed sheep plush. Fine, I'll go to sleep. Izuku didn't realize how tired he actually was until he closed his eyes and drifted off. Bakugou blinked. He was in his hero costume, standing in a hallway that looked oddly familiar. He took a few steps and realized where he was. The dark metallic hallway led to an opening of a floor, rubble and debris scattered about. He was back in Ground Beta, where Class 1A had their first hero training class. It took a few seconds of staring at the open wall to realize he was dreaming. Well, at least that's what he thought it was. Bakugou doesn't usually dream, and he definitely doesn't remember what happens vividly. He felt like he was actually there, standing on Ground Beta where he once fought Deku for the first time after being accepted into UA. Maybe it wasn't a dream, maybe this was somebody's quirk at play. Bakugou got himself ready, holding his gauntlets up as he scanned the area. Rushing footsteps alerted Bakugou, and he turned towards the entrance of the floor. He froze. Izuku Midoriya stood there, out of breath in his original hero costume. "Kachan dash!" he cried out, breaking out into a watery smile as he took a step closer to him. Bakugou quickly held an arm up, readying his gauntlet. Sweat rolled down his face as he screamed out, "Stay there, DKU!" Even if it was just a one-on-one, Bakugou would be able to defeat Deku and take him back to UA. He had to be clever, on the top of his game for a fight like this. "Wait, Kachan, I dash!" In a split second, Bakugou was using his other hand to propel himself towards the boy. He quickly used the momentum to spin his leg up, crashing it down on Deku's shoulder. He fell down onto the ground, gasping out as Bakugou grabbed his jumpsuit. With one hand on Deku's back, the other holding his jumpsuit, Bakugou took in deep breaths, shaking ever so slightly. The boy underneath him struggled. "Seriously, get off me. I'm not trying to fight you. I don't even think this is real," Deku yelled out. Bakugou hesitated. It was strange, that was certain. There was no way they could have made it to Ground Beta without realizing something beforehand. "The last thing I remember is going to sleep. I remember everything." "What?" Bakugou got off him, keeping his grip on Deku's jumpsuit as he slowly got himself up. Deku coughed and started stretching his shoulders, rubbing it with a gloved hand. Bakugou stared at him, looking to see if there was any indication of whether or not this was an imposter before him. His brows furrowed, grip tightening. "What the fuck is this, Deku?" he growled, shaking the boy ever so slightly. "Hey, quit it, let go!" Deku pulled himself away from Bakugou and huffed, staring at him. His large eyes didn't seem as clouded or tired as the times he faced him after the villains had forced him into their league. His eyes were confused, yet determined. "Better start giving me some explanations before I blow your goddamn head off," Bakugou hissed. "I don't know what this is. I just know that I was asleep before this, so I think this might be a dream." Deku rubbed his head, then pinching his arm. "I just went to sleep too, and I know I'm here, so I'm probably the one dreaming, and you're just my goddamn imagination," Bakugou hissed, turning away. "I should have stayed away and trained. At least that would have been more useful than just dreaming about your sorry ass." Deku walked towards him, grabbing his arm. "No, I don't think just one of us is dreaming. I think we're both dreaming. Together? I think..." Izuku rubbed his chin, lost in thought. "I think we're both here through a shared memory. We're back in Ground Beta, right? That's where we first fought officially as classmates." Deku turned to look at the debris. "Shared memory? What the fuck are you talking about?" Bakugou turned back to glare down the smaller boy. I wasn't brainwashed. My memories were altered," Deku explained, his voice soft. Bakugou stared at him, walking back towards the boy. "I remember what happened, so I think my actual self is buried underneath all the false implants. It's just a theory, but I think that we're both here through a shared memory, and in some weird way we got connected." Deku looked back up to Bakugou, whose eyes were wide open. "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard, but I don't think I could ever make up such a lame explanation. So I guess you're not just a dream version I whipped up." Bakugou's voice was low as well, his darkened stare lifted. "I don't know if that's right, but it's just a theory. If my memories were altered, I wouldn't be able to remember this place. But I'm here now, which means that I'm trying to reach them. Could it be maybe it's..." Deku turned around to look at the surroundings. Bakugou followed his gaze. In the entranceway was shadows. 8 sets of eyes loomed inside of corridor. "It's just like during the sports festival," Deku muttered. Bakugou turned back and pointed at the entrance, reading his hands. "What the fuck is that shit?" He moved on to offense. "You can see them too?" Deku scrambled to move Bakugou's hand down. The shadows stayed still at the entrance, not moving. "Is that your one-for-all shit? With all the people or something?" Bakugou frowned. What kind of almighty quirk is it if they can't help out their current wielder? What? You know about One for All? Deku gasped, fear appearing on his face. Yeah, All Might told me and your mom. He glared at the shadows in the hallway and turned back to Deku, whose face went white. My mom? Oh my god, my mom, is she okay? Deku's eyes began to well. Bakugou felt something tug at his heartstrings. She's fine. She moved into the dorms with us, so we're all taking care of her. Or I guess she's taking care of us. Bakugou explained, stretching out his arms as he turned back to stare at the glowing eyes. Deku sighed in relief. I'm so glad. Thank you, Kachan, for looking after her. He sniffed softly, rubbing his face. Bakugou definitely couldn't be dreaming. He began to realize at this point, this Deku was nothing he could have imagined up for himself. This was the real deal. So what you're saying is that we happened to fall asleep around the same time, and we got transported to here. Bakugou frowned, not liking his explanation at all. It sounded fake, something that only happens in the comics or movies. Yeah, I think it's because One for All is trying to help me, and the only way they could was through my old memories. Deku shook his head. Listen, Kachan, if this is a dream or a vision or whatever, then I have to tell you something. Bakugou's mouth twitched. He still wasn't happy at all about what was transpiring, but if this was the real Deku asking for help, it was something he had to listen to. They've altered my memories, but right now I remember everything, even what's happening with me and the villains. I'm making a strategy, but I'm not finished. I just know that the villains, Deku gulped, and me, are going to try and take all of Class 1 down. Deku's eyes watered while Bakugou's widened. Do you know when? Or how? Tears began rolling down Deku's cheeks. His hands clenched into fists, pulling at his jumpsuit. I don't know when, but I know that it's going to involve Nomus and using all your quirk's weaknesses, maybe even pitting all of you against each other. Similar to how final exam was, we're going to try to spread everyone out and pair people with the least compatibility. He shook his head. Deku began to tremble. I'm so sorry, I was weak. I couldn't snap out of their hold, and now I'm helping them hurt all of you. Tears fell from his face. The pain in his chest grew as Deku fell to his knees in front of Bakugou. If I had known they would use me against all of you, I would have tried to let them kill me first. Bakugou took a hold of the jumpsuit once more, bringing Deku up to force him to look. Shut up! You're not weak, you got that? So what if you got manipulated or whatever? We're going to get you back. The fire in Bakugou's eyes were apparent. Deku stared at him as more tears slowly slid down his cheek. You listen up, nerd, and you listen good. Even if it takes me the rest of my goddamn life, I'm going to rescue you, got that? Determination rose, though Bakugou began trembling himself. It's my fucking fault this is happening. So I swear I'm going to save you. The sincerity in his voice was something Deku had never heard before. It was almost too foreign for him to take seriously. Bits of pieces began to click in Deku's mind, causing him to share a shaky smile. Right, you're right, Kachan. Deku used his shoulder to wipe his tears away. Fucking cry, baby. Bakugou let go of the jumpsuit, turning away to not show his own glistening eyes. Kachan, I'm leaving it to you, okay? I don't know when the next time we can meet like this is, but if I never see you again until I'm rescued, then, well, I'm counting on you. Deku stepped back, taking a deep breath, and smiled brightly at Bakugou. The boy scoffed, returning with a smirk of his own. Just wait, you'll be back to your dumb, annoying brat self in no time. Deku muttered a thank you, smiling through his teary eyes. Bakugou shot up from his bed, sweat clinging to his skin as threw off his blanket. He looked at his balcony door, seeing the sun slowly peeking up over the horizon. Taking a second, Bakugou tried to recall everything. To his surprise, it was as vivid as could be. He remembered everything. Throwing himself out of his bed, he raced out of his room and into the hall. He had to tell All Might, his classmates even. The real Deku was still inside, buried deep down in all of the altered memories. He reached out. He was fighting back. There was hope. Izuku woke up abruptly. He felt a sharp pain in his shoulder and back, but dismissed it as the usual soreness he got from sleeping on a sofa. It was another dreamless night, or at least nothing he remembered. Sitting up in his makeshift couch bed, he yawned. Reaching up to rub his eyes, he was surprised to find that there were tears in them. The first person Bakugou told about the dream was All Might. It was only fitting, since he might have more insight on what had transpired and if One for All was playing any part in keeping Izuku from losing himself. He caught the man in the hallway on the way to the teacher's lawn. It was still early, too early for any student to be out and about. On top of that, Bakugou's face had looked too serious and almost desperate for All Might to give any second thoughts. The previous number 1 hero sat Bakugou down in the teacher's long sofa and made him some green tea. All Might sat down in front of him, listening to the boy's explanation on what had occurred during the night. During the dream. My boy, are you certain it was young Midoriya? All Might's face looked too serious, almost grim. I swear to you it was. There's no way I could have imagined up a dumb explanation like that. On top of that, I think I saw the other users of One for All, Bakugou added, gripping the cup of tea in his hands. There was 8 people, hidden in the hallway. I could see their eyes but not their bodies. One of them, I think, looked like you. All Might leaned back on his chair, hands folded on his lap. He took a deep breath. There's no doubt about it then, that was One for All. You described it almost exactly the same way young Midoriya had before. The retired hero leaned in, looking directly in Bakugou's eyes. Young Bakugou, you've found out something incredibly important. Not only do we know Midoriya is still inside his trapped memories, but we know a bit of their plan and can prepare accordingly. Hearing it from All Might made Bakugou's lip quiver. The sense of relief he was feeling in that moment was unimaginable, not something you could measure or describe with words. In the back of his mind, Bakugou was afraid that his dream was nothing more than just that, not a vision or a plea for help. Now that he's explained it to All Might, the burden was slowly falling off his shoulders. We should tell Aizawa Sensei, and everyone else. Bakugou got up from his seat, nearly dropping his cup of green tea. All Might nodded his head, getting up as well and checking the time of the wall clock. It's nearly time for everyone to get up anyways. We can wake them up early and have a class meeting. Let's go, young Bakugou. All Might held an arm out for Bakugou, patting his back as he walked over. The boy felt a tremendous amount of emotion wave past him, forming into tears in his eyes. He quickly took an arm and rubbed them away. That fucking Deku was getting to him. All Might and Aizawa had presented the situation to everyone in the common area. The entire class had gathered, either sitting on the sofas or standing. Inko Midoriya was sitting down as well, listening in as she handed the students some orange juice. Bakugou scanned over messy hair and tired faces to see their reactions as the dream was described. His face reddened with embarrassment, as there wasn't any other time a teacher of his would be describing his dream to his fellow classmates. In theory it sounded like a dumb prank, but the severity of the situation was not meant with any laughter or mockery. Those tired eyes amongst the students brightened, fueled by hope. So Deku can be saved, he's not forever brainwashed? Uraraka cried out, her own eyes welling up. He wasn't brainwashed. Midoriya described it as memory alteration. Perhaps an illusion-type quirk. Yaoyorozu had interjected while tying up her hair. To be trapped inside one's own mind, watching your body act on motives that are not your own. How awful. Tokoyami crossed his arms and furrowed, closing his eyes. The chattering amongst students began to peak, irritating their sensei. He only allowed it for a while longer, before raising his voice. Listen. With this new information, we've also discovered that the villains are planning on taking you all down. This won't be the same as the USJ attack, nor the attack during summer training. We're all being targeted. The villains know all of our quirks, and even weaknesses at this point. On top of that, they technically have one of our own as hostage. Even if they plan to use him against us, there's no telling when they'll dispose of Midoriya. The class grew silent. It's not easy to say this, but if push comes to shove, they'll probably kill Midoriya if they find themselves back in a corner. Aizawa frowned deeply, his hands balling into fists beside him. The atmosphere amongst the students became deadly, fearful. That's why we're going to have to train the hardest we've ever had to. I was planning on making you all take the hero license exam so each one of you would be able to use your quirks outside of school, but considering our circumstances, it might be too risky to pursue that right now. Once we finish this meeting, we'll have to talk to Principal Nedzu and the police force. It's more than likely that they'll have more guards surrounding us and a tighter schedule. They might even try to convince us to not get involved. A few words of frustration had sprung. However, I as your class homeroom teacher give you all permission to use your quirks outside of class. I will take full responsibility, even if it costs me my teacher job or hero license. But Sensei dash. Ashido had started but was met with Aizawa raising a hand. In my heart, I believe it is all of you that will rescue Midoriya. The bonds in this class are strong. I have never seen another group of first years that shows so much vigor and determination than all of you. Aizawa had closed his eyes, the class stunned. With that being said, you all need to put forth more than just your best. Go beyond, plus dash, plus ultra! The class erupted. Even Inko had held a fist up to the sky with determination in her eyes. Aizawa scoffed, smirking gently. Right, now you can all return back to dash. Aizawa was suddenly attacked by a few of his students, all pulling him and all might into a hug. Sensei! That was so sweet of you! Hagakure cried out. Other students had piled into the group hug until only Bakugou remained. Even Todoroki had been pulled in by Ida, though it didn't seem like he wanted to pull away at the moment. Bakugou frowned deeply, unsure on how to handle all of this until Shiro and Kirishima looked at him. Come here, Bakugou! Shiro yelled out, using his tape to pull the boy into the group hug. Kirishima wrangled Bakugou's shoulders with his arm, pulling him into the entire class hug. He grumbled loudly, muttering curses, but finally gave him. He held his arms out, placing them on Shiro and Kirishima's back as he kept his head low, listening to Aizawa's yells of complaints and All Might's laughter. Bakugou had tried sleeping at the same time as the night before in order to meet up with Deku, at least just once more. Maybe he'd have more information about the possible attack, but every time he tried to go to sleep it never came to another meeting. He tried falling asleep at different times, but still led to no other meetings. He started to believe that the next time he'd see Deku was during the attack. The class had been given orders to always stay together, at least in groups of 2 or 3 to be safe. Each student had formed their own little buddy systems and began training with each other either during hero practice and even in their own free time. With the warning that the attack was going to try to separate everyone by quirk and weaknesses, the students of Class 1A had all worked on picking up their endurance as well as figuring out possible counters to any outcome. It was interesting to see different pairings form as a result. Bakugou saw Azuri talking with Todoroki about how she fared in fire, and asked for his help creating a simulation where she would figure out how to work in flames. Aoyama and Uraraka had planned a competition amongst each other to work on their quirk limits. Whoever would get a stomachache/nauseous first would have to make the other person dinner for the day. Students all went to Ojiro for martial arts training, and others went to Yayorozu to get her to create some training dummies as well. Even Kaminari had gone to the support class and asked for some tech that could help him regulate the direction of his electricity. Everyone was working to push their limits, to break their current weaknesses in order to save Izuku Midoriya. Even when the nerd wasn't around, he was still uniting the class in some way or another. The entire class was kicked into gear, training like the attack could happen at any moment. They had to be ready for it. Bakugou continued to spar with Kirishima, as the latter had confronted him and begged for some one-on-one sparring in order to work on being able to last in a drawn-out fight. Of course, Bakugou had no problem using the hardening quirk to his own advantages as well. It was a good pair. Better than the sports festival fight, yeah? Kirishima grinned, aiming more punches at Bakugou's face. He dodged them quickly, moving to counter with his arms. He tried to land an explosion on Kirishima's side, but the other boy hardened his skin so it had no effect. Yeah, but you're probably going to last only an extra minute. Bakugou spun on his heel, kicking up his other leg to land a hit at the side of Kirishima's head. The red-haired boy hardened his face, moving to grip at Bakugou's ankle. Once Bakugou felt the boy's hold, he used his palms to explode himself off the ground, flipping himself over and using the moment of his leg to bring Kirishima up and slammed him to the ground. Kirishima landed with a grunt, flat on his back. He quickly sat up, holding onto his head before stumbling up. I'm not down yet! Bakugou grinned widely, turning around to throw an explosion at him. Kirishima quickly dodged it, bringing his arms up to lock Bakugou's arm. He turned on his heel right after, throwing Bakugou to the side. The blonde quickly readjusted his weight so that he could land on his feet, using a hand to the ground to stop his momentum. He grinned up at Kirishima. Guess you went past an extra minute. Let's finish this. Bakugou charged at Kirishima, who in return began running towards Bakugou, yelling out. Before the two could meet in the middle of the sparring field, a loud explosion that was heading their way caught their attention. Yo, look out! Kirishima called out, kicking himself in gear and launched himself to pull Bakugou onto the ground, away from the explosion. The two of them coughed, the dirt from the ground shifting into puffs of brown clouds around them. They quickly got up, readying themselves. Was it the time? Were the villains here? Kirishima! Bakugou! Ida ran towards them, an arm up in his signature robotic fashion. So sorry, Yayorozu is working on creating new types of cannons and explosions with her quirk. We've also been learning to dodge the speed and I accidentally kicked one of the explosions over here. Is anyone hurt? Bakugou shoved Kirishima off him, standing up and then grabbed the hardened boy by the ear and hoisted him onto his feet. We're fucking fine, better watch it for eyes. Anyone else other than us, and we would have been blown up. Bakugou had an ugly look on his face, but Kirishima was staring at him with glimmering eyes. Oh my god, Ida, did you hear that? He basically said I was strong. Kirishima held onto his face, Ida bowing his head deeply. Again, apologies. Ida moved up from his bow and then bowed once more. Then again. Then he got up and left back to the group he was training with. Bakugou huffed, turning to see Kirishima still ogling at him. What the fuck do you want hairs for brains? He screamed, trying to slam his hand against the boy's face to make an explosion. Kirishima ducked, dodging the attack, but kept his smiling face of admiration and pride on his face. You think I'm getting better? Kirishima batted his eyelashes. It was met with a huff from Bakugou and his other hand throwing down onto Kirishima's face. Of course, you idiot! Everyone here's working their asses off. You got me off guard for a second too, so I guess you're improving. Bakugou pushed Kirishima's face away from him, shoving his hands into his pockets after. Right on! At this rate, we'll get back Midoriya for sure! Kirishima threw a fist into the air, grinning brightly. Bakugou turned away, but he wasn't angry or upset about Kirishima's exclamation. It was true, the entire Class 1A was improving themselves at such an incredible speed. Not only had that, but they all done so while bonding. It was true what Aizawa Sensei had said about the class. They were strong, but they were strongest together. It was cheesy for sure. Bakugou would never admit it, but he felt a part of the class's strength. The sound of wheels were heard coming towards them. Izuku Midoriya had a small trolley of water bottles behind her, but she wasn't pushing it. Instead, she was pulling the trolley with her quirk. Even she was working hard to exercise her own powers and exceed past her limits. It didn't seem like she was having too much trouble, but the trolley moved at a slower pace than normal. Hi boys, here, take some water bottles. She pulled the water bottles from the trolley towards her, taking a hold of them and handed them to Bakugou and Kirishima. Thank you, Mrs. Midoriya. Kirishima bowed his head and took the water bottle, opening it and began chugging. Bakugou took the water bottle and nodded at her, feeling a bit relaxed seeing the mother work so hard. He noted that she hadn't cried in a while, not even when they discussed the dream Bakugou had, nor did she ask about it afterwards. Instead, it looked like she was given a new set of motivation and drive, visible physically and through her work ethics. Inko didn't want to stand aside anymore, not wanting to worry or fret like she had done before. Instead, she sought to be of use to the people that were going to help save her son. Bakugou always knew her as a fiercely protective and loving mother. Whenever he was over at the Midoriyas as a child, she loved to pick up her son and fly him around, showering him with kisses. A mother's love could reach even the stars and was more powerful than any quirk. At least that's what it seemed to Bakugou in that moment. It only strengthened his desire to fulfill the promise he made to her. Toshinori Yagi walked into the high-tech prison hallway with 2 guards behind him. He had wanted to come sooner, but with the situation happening with Izuku Midoriya and Class 1A, it was nearly impossible to make time or set aside the emotions that were still reeling inside him. After confiding in Gran Torino, Toshinori felt like he was resolved enough to confront All for One. He had to find out, even if it would be difficult. He needed to know how to save young Midoriya. He sat in a chair, wearing one of his All Might hero outfits despite the size being too big for his true form. In front of him was a glass wall, and beyond that was All for One, strapped against a chair. Next to the chair was tubes and bars that kept him alive. Bright lights illuminated the room, but it felt a lot darker of an atmosphere. This place, All Might, One for All began, knowing that the retired hero was sitting in front of him. It's quite stiff. Let's say I have an itch on my back. If I were to move to scratch it, the guns will point at me. My vitals, my brain waves, all monitored at all times. If you so much as think about activating your quirk, their hands will already be gripped around your throat. Toshinori didn't budge. He didn't care for small talk at the moment. They modeled it after a Greek legend. They call it Tartarus. It is the name of the god of hell. Quite fitting that the fate of those who betray the gods have befallen me. Toshinori's gaze pierced through the wall, despite the man before him being unable to see. What kind of quirk did you use on young Midoriya? He wanted to get straight to the point. He wasn't there for idle chit-chat. Of course you'd be here to ask me that. But what about young Tamura? After all, he is the blood relative of your dear master. My successor and yours, working in tandem. Quite troubling, is it not? I could only imagine how you must be feeling. Toshinori kept his composure. Even if the villain was the grandson of his master, none of that mattered. What was more important was Izuku Midoriya. You plan to have your successor kill both the boy and I. Toshinori started, recalling what Grand Torino told him. You are no longer capable of seeing him as a villain. You would be at a complete loss. No matter what his lineage is, at the end of the day he's still a criminal. It was true, he was almost blinded by the fact that he could be harming his master's kin. But everything changed once young Midoriya became involved. Tamura Shigaraki might have been his master's grandson, but he himself had become a mentor to Midoriya and he was first priority. If that's the case, then I hope you enjoy rotting in here for the rest of your life. I will not die. Now I'll ask you again, I came here for the sole purpose of saving young Midoriya. What did you do to him? All for One chuckled. He almost looked like he was grinning behind the bandages. You've lost All Might. Even if you survive, that boy will never be the same. I haven't had a proper conversation in years, so I might just indulge you on some hints. Toshinori frowned. We know that you've used a memory-altering quirk. Just what did you alter? He asked, taking a deep breath to keep his composure. So you found out that much? Interesting. I didn't change much actually, you see, children can be quite cruel. All for One chuckled again. I saw his memories, so I know about how you two met. Did you know, right before then, a certain classmate of his had said some rather harsh things? If it wasn't for that boy, honestly it would have taken me more work to piece together a new path. Toshinori felt his chest tightened. Was he talking about young Bakugou? I'll keep it simple. That young boy with the explosions had told our little Midoriya to kill himself. I went from there. You already told him that he couldn't be a hero, so I just made it so he did jump. Brilliant, isn't it? Toshinori swallowed hard. He knew that Midoriya and Bakugou had a long rivalry, but to hear exactly what Midoriya had gone through was too much to bear. Children were awful, but Katsuki Bakugou had grown tremendously. He knew that the boy regretted his actions and was working past his limits to save Midoriya. It's a simple memory-altering quirk I've stolen a long time ago, but that's not the only quirk I used on him. All for One used the information like bait on a string. Toshinori could only listen, wondering if what the villain was saying was false. Just a way to get him on the edge of his seat. What is it? Toshinori gritted his teeth. What? No, please. At that, Toshinori got up, moving to leave. I don't have time for this. You're bluffing regardless. Have fun rotting in here forever. Before Toshinori could step away, All for One quickly interjected. Wait. I have more to say. The villain wanted to get his plan out. He wanted to hear Toshinori's shock. I'll tell you what it is. Toshinori turned back around, readying himself. About half the class were sitting in the common rooms, either playing card games or just talking. The other half of the students were in the kitchen grabbing snacks and choosing movies. They all had made a consensus to have a night off of training and have something similar to a movie/game night. Most of the girls had all convinced Sado to bake something for the night, and he presented everyone with a scrumptious sponge cake. Everyone had gotten a piece for the night, and while Bakugou wasn't one to eat sweets, it wasn't half bad. Bakugou watched as Todoroki, teamed up with Ida, face off against Denki, who was teamed up with Kuda, in a game of charades. Ida's wild hand gestures had confused Icy Hot, who couldn't decipher which hand movements were a part of the hints, and which ones were just Ida being himself. Kuda, on the other hand, was pretty good at charades. It was the electric dummy that wasn't able to decipher the well-thought-out clues given to him. Jairo had brought out an acoustic guitar and was showing Tokoemi and Ciro the chords to an easy song. She strummed a few of the chords for them, bobbing her head to the tune. Other classmates were talking and eating cakes. Someone had finally decided on what movie for them to watch. Hagakure and Ashido both voted on watching a classic Disney movie and moved to put it in. Before they could put the movie in, all the lights had gone out. Everyone's first response was to look at Kaminari, but once he faced his classmates with a serious face, they all got up. The emergency lights started flashing red against the walls. Intruders on campus. This is not a drill. Intruders on campus. Ida was the first to raise his arm. Class 1A. We have intruders on the campus and they're most likely the villains. Prepare yourselves, stay in groups. Ida looked over to his classmates. First, we need to make sure Mrs. Midoriya is safe. Satu and Shuji had both paired up to go check on Inko in her room. The rest of the class headed towards the front to see the commotion that was brought into the Udata campus. Bakugou raced through the gates, stopping when they saw a lone person walking through the pathway, security guard bodies on the floor. From the looks of it, they were only pinned down, and not dead. Despite it being the nighttime, Bakugou was able to see that the security personnel were all being held down by knives. The class came to a halt, watching as Izuku Midoriya walked towards them, a knife in one hand and a notebook in the other. Looks like not everyone's accounted for, but that's fine. Bakugou glared. It seemed like he was right in thinking the next time he'd see Deku was during the attack, and there he was. Before Deku could take another step, Zero and Mineta had moved into action. Purple orbs were thrown near Deku's feet, causing the villain to move in order to dodge them. Zero had used his tape to catch him as he jumped into the air, wrapping around him tightly and began pulling. "You're in our territory now! Come on, let's get you back here with us!" Zero yelled out, pulling at his tape. A warp gate formed behind Deku, absorbing him as the tape began being pulled from inside the warp gate. Zero nearly jerked forwards before Kirishima sliced the tape off him with his hardened skin. Another warp gate appeared behind the class. Students that were closer to the gate quickly faced it, while the other classmates kept their eyes peeling all around them. The entire class moved closer to each other, getting ready as two more warp gates on each side of the first gate appeared. Deku emerged out of the middle, his notebook tucked under his arm. "We might be in your territory now, but I think you'll find that we have the upper hand." Behind him emerged out Tamura Shigaraki, then the villain responsible for the warp gates. Out of the other portals came out various nomas, reaching to at least 6 in all. Other villains emerged from the warp gate alongside the monsters. The class prepared themselves as the villains approached. They had trained their hardest for this moment. Bakugou stared down Deku, who in return grinned at him. "Kachan, I've been waiting for this for a long time." He started walking towards the class, though his sights were only on Bakugou. Tamura took a hold of his shoulder with a finger up. He whispered something to him, leaving Deku with a frown. Bakugou noticed the clenched fists, and the way he receded back behind the villains with the hands. The nomas charged towards the students as warp portals were being placed around the areas. The villains were planning on splitting everyone up, at least that's what it looked like to Class 1A. They kept to their assigned pairings and groups, getting ready to face the nomas. Bakugou kept his sights on Deku, while the other did the same. This was it. He was going to save Izuku Midoriya. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey today. I hope you enjoyed exploring the fascinating what-if scenario of Deku. The possibilities were truly mind-blowing. If you found this video entertaining and thought-provoking, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means the world to me and inspires me to bring you more captivating content in the future. Stay tuned for more exciting what-if stories and other amazing videos coming your way. Until next time, take care, stay curious, and keep embracing the power of imagination.